listening to Music Tectonics.
Welcome back to Music Tectonics, where we go beneath the surface of music and tech, where we walk down the street banging on everything we see that resonates, where transformations of the recording industry resonate as much as transcendence of the making of sound waves. I'm your host, Dimitri Vitsa. I'm also the founder and CEO of Rock, Paper, Scissors, a PR firm that specializes in music and technology. And today I'm super excited to bring on the show somebody we've never had before. I'd like to welcome you, Dave Mandelbrot from Reverb, the CEO of Reverb. How are you, David?
I'm doing great, Dimitri. How are you?
I'm doing great too. So let's dive in. I've got tons I want to talk about. Reverb is such an amazing brand in the music space. But how do you describe Reverb for anyone who's yet to shop there?
Yeah, for somebody that has yet to shop at Reverb, the way I describe Reverb is that it's the place for music makers to find the largest selection of new, used, and vintage musical instruments that hopefully will inspire them.
It's funny. As soon as I said, how do you describe it to anyone who shopped there, I thought, he's probably going to say, what about people who sell there? Because that's the other side of it, right?
It absolutely is the other side of it. And the great thing for people that sell on Reverb is it's almost exactly the reverse. It's the place to find the largest community of music makers that would be eager to play their instruments.
Yeah, it's so cool. And what you didn't say in your little description is it somehow you guys have created a brand that feels like a community. It does not just feel like a marketplace. It feels like the people that shop at Reverb, they're like lifelong advocates and champions. It's like a kid that went to the record store and they went back to the same record store. They seem like Reverb people seem like that too, don't they?
They do. And, for a long time at Reverb, we talked about how we wanted Reverb to really feel like a music store, a place where, you could go in and you could find other, people that were experts on the musical gear that you were interested in. You could, maybe connect with other people that were there that were interested in the same gear as you are. And you're absolutely right. Reverb, because we've got this intense focus on music makers, it does feel very much like a community that that our users really enjoy.
I mean, the other thing that's interesting about it to me is it seems like the sellers and the buyers are actually one and the same. I mean, I know that's not 100% true, but it feels like they're speaking the same language. People can buy stuff and then sell it later. But it's interesting how that, you think about a two-sided market, and it's weird how much kind of synergy there is between the two sides where you guys are.
It's absolutely true. And close to half of the people that buy on Reverb also sell on Reverb. And it's part of the beauty of Reverb that if you buy an instrument on Reverb and it's not the right instrument for you, you can just immediately turn around and sell it. And because Reverb has created this great marketplace with buyers and sellers all over the world, in a lot of cases, if it's the wrong instrument, you can turn around and sell it, very quickly at very close to the price you paid. So the cost of trying the instrument and exploring something new is actually very low.
So you guys recently released your earnings report, and Q1 was the best quarter ever, I think I read. Tell us what led to such great sales this year.
Yeah, it's a great question. If we're looking at the last year, needless to say, the pandemic had a huge impact on our sales. And there were really two things that were happening during the pandemic. One was the fact that more people were interested in music than ever before. So demand for musical instruments was at an all-time high. As people were stuck at home, more people wanted to make music. And then on the other side, because of restrictions that were put in place, some of the local music stores were closed. And so if people wanted to find musical instruments, Reverb was really the best place to do that. And so the combination of people being really interested in musical instruments and the changes in the dynamics for the local stores having to be closed and those local stores having to shift their businesses online had a very strong positive impact on our business.
That's really interesting. I mean, it's like there were two factors that were pandemic related, like what the other supply was and then what the demand in terms of people being stuck at home and wanting to do it.
Absolutely. And one of the great things about Reverb, compared to other sellers of musical instruments, is that we have, we're a marketplace and we have thousands of sellers from all over the world, ranging from the largest musical instrument stores to individuals who might sell one or two instruments a year. So while last year supply was constrained actually in the musical instrument industry because a lot of manufacturers struggled to manufacture and be in compliant with COVID-related restrictions, it meant that instruments were harder to find. But because Reverb has thousands of sellers from all over the world, even if an instrument wasn't available from one of the larger musical instrument sellers, it was still available on Reverb because one of the thousands of sellers on Reverb from all over the world had that instrument.
Well, it's almost like that used and vintage instrument side of it could almost be like a buffer for supply.
It absolutely is, and that's what we saw last year as it became harder to get certain new instruments because of challenges in manufacturing. Users turned more and more often to used instruments, and of course, Reverb actually started as a marketplace primarily for used instruments, and with our tremendous supply of used instruments, it meant that if the new instrument wasn't available, users could find a used alternative that met their needs.
Did you learn anything about your customers and users from the pandemic besides obviously how they react in a pandemic? But did you learn anything that's going to like inform things going forward?
The main thing we learned about our users during the pandemic is especially, as things were, choppy in the early stages of the pandemic, when it wasn't clear that people would be able to get their instruments, and it wasn't clear how shipping would work with, UPS and FedEx. What our users really wanted was clarity. They wanted to be able to be confident that if they ordered that instrument, maybe because they were recording something and they wanted to make sure to, meet the opportunity when they were inspired, they wanted to be confident that they would actually get that instrument. They didn't want us selling them an instrument and then, getting a notice, hey, shipping is delayed, by UPS shipping is delayed, so your instrument may not come for a week or two. So what we actually did during the pandemic is we actually reviewed all of the shipments from our sellers to figure out which ones were actually shipping on time and which ones were on routes that were not hindered in any way because of the pandemic. So that when we told our users, hey, you can expect to receive this instrument in this period of time, we could have confidence that they actually would.
Got it. So separate from the pandemic, do you think other things led to where your success is going now? Is there anything about where you've come as a business, any new offerings from the business that have something about the interface or something else about the way the workflow for the customer or the seller is structured? Any of that stuff also contributing to where things have come this year?
Absolutely. There's a few things that we've done really over the last couple years to improve the experience on Reverb that has dramatically impacted our business. One is we've made it much easier for sellers on Reverb to actually sell gear. So if you're a very large seller, like you're a major music store like the Chicago Music Exchange in Chicago or Alto Music, we've built really good systems to allow you to sell on Reverb and maintain, how do I describe it, and keep track of your inventory in a comprehensive way. So you can list a piece of gear on your own website. You can also list it on Reverb, and if you sell it on Reverb, you'll know, and it'll automatically come down from your own website, and vice versa. If you sell it on your own website, we'll know, and the instrument will come down from Reverb. So if you're a major seller and you've got a lot of inventory, it's very easy to sell, in all the places that you want to sell. And then for the smaller sellers, we've made it much easier to use Reverb by, for example, integrating some really good shipping options. And if you sell a musical instrument on Reverb, you can, through us, buy a shipping label at UPS or FedEx, and very easily get a very good price for actually shipping the instrument. One other thing I'll add that we didn't do last year, but that we did relatively recently, is we realized for a lot of people that were selling guitars on Reverb, one of the biggest challenges actually was just getting a box to ship that, guitar in. And one of the smartest things I think Reverb did, the company actually did it before I joined, was we just started selling guitar boxes. So if you sell a guitar and you need a box to ship that guitar, you can, for $35, you can get 3 guitar boxes from Reverb. And makes it just that much easier for you to sell. And all of these little things that we put together to make the selling and buying experience much easier really contributed to our success beyond the pandemic.
Wow, it's interesting. As you talk, I haven't thought about this level of detail for Reverb on the supply side. And as you talk, it really sounds like you've built this for sellers in a way that I don't think people talk about Amazon the same way.
It's true. It's been one of the wonderful things about Reverb is that we are 100% focused on the sellers and buyers of musical instruments. And because we have that singular focus, it allows us to build custom solutions that really are tailored to those two entities. So, for example, if you're a seller of a musical instrument, if you go to sell that instrument, let's use eBay as the example. If you go to sell that instrument on eBay, eBay doesn't know the difference between a Martin guitar or a Taylor guitar or a Guild. They just know that you're selling something, and you can designate the category. It's a musical instrument, but they don't really understand the differences. We have a dedicated team that knows not just the brands of guitars, but the models of guitars. And that goes back to vintage, models of guitars. So if you want to list a guitar and you don't know the specs of that guitar, we likely have the specs of that guitar, and we can share them with you so that you can include them in your listing and make it really easy for sellers to sell, specifically because our knowledge of the musical instruments that they're selling is so great. And on the reverse, on the buyers, it's the same situation. For buyers, we can help them. If you're looking for an acoustic guitar for under $500, this is the range of acoustic guitars that are available to you. These are the different tonal properties of those guitars. And there's something about that singular focus on musical instruments that allows us to deliver a great experience for both buyers and sellers in our marketplace.
You mentioned eBay, and I assume before Reverb really took off, that was probably the main online place where this was happening. You've talked a little bit about kind of how you've differentiated and why that's maybe led to Reverb's success. Are there other things in a world where eBay was pretty much owned the entire market of individuals selling used stuff to each other, basically? Are there other things that kind of led to Reverb's success in spite of the fact that there was kind of already a big gorilla in the space?
Yeah, there's a number of factors that led to our success. Our singular focus on musical instruments allowed us to do a number of things differently, to have a number of unique things related to Reverb that eBay or others don't have. And we really focus on four key things. The first one is inventory, because Reverb is so focused on musical instruments, and because we work so closely with sellers, large and small, throughout the world. We just have the largest inventory of musical instruments. So, if you're looking for a new baby Taylor guitar, most sellers are going to have that guitar if it's been recently manufactured. But I'll use an example. I was just recently talking to the CEO of Etsy, our parent company, and he was telling me that when he was in high school, he played a Guild X79. That's I think that only about 400, it was an electric guitar. I think only about 400 of that guitar were actually, manufactured. This would have been in the mid 80s. And of course, there are Guild X79s available on Reverb. So we just have an inventory that eBay or other sellers of musical instruments can't match. The second thing is really our expertise. What Reverb has a team that we refer to internally as our product catalog team. And that team is true experts on guitars. They can tell you for an acoustic guitar, or an electric guitar, any type of guitar, what the nut width is of that guitar, whether it's a 1 11/16 inch nut width or a 1 3/4 inch nut width, which guitar players really care about. What's the profile of the neck? We have experts in synthesizers that can really explain to you as the buyer what's the difference between an analog synthesizer versus a poly synthesizer and what different tonal properties different synthesizers have. And as users started to use Reverb, they really were able to get more comfortable because of the clear expertise that we had. They were able to get more comfortable that they had a higher likelihood of finding an instrument that resonated with them. If you'll forgive the pun. The third thing is the community. Reverb now has millions of users that visit Reverb on a monthly basis looking for that right musical instrument or looking to sell their musical instrument. And we actually just launched a feature that I'm really excited about, which is something called gear collections, where we allow our users to share with other users what's in their collection, even if they're not selling, so that you have the ability to connect with other users that share an interest in the same types of instruments that you do. So if you're somebody that's really into making it up, Moog synthesizers, you can connect with somebody else that's really passionate about Moog synthesizers and engage in a discussion about that instrument. And then the last one is that Reverb works closely with dealers from all over the country, and it allows us, or all over the world, and it allows us to do things that others that don't work so closely with those dealers can't do. For example, in certain cases, we've partnered with dealers to make it easy for users to just, rather than listing a guitar for sale, to just directly sell it to a dealer at a price right out of the gate and not have to go through the back and forth about selling the guitar. So between the inventory we have, the expertise that we bring, the way we bring together our community, and the way we work with a broad dealer network, all of those things are things that differentiate us and make us a much more compelling destination for somebody that is looking for that musical instrument that will inspire them.
Well, one of the reasons I love doing these interviews is sure to find out about your journey, about your company, and so forth, but also to sort of make connections and get lessons learned for other folks who are starting companies to think a little bit about what has worked for others and so forth. And I really take away from this kind of lean in experience of really thinking through the entire channel from the supply chain all the way to the buyer at the very end, and the things happening in between, like that direct to dealer sale opportunity and so forth. So it's really helpful. So I appreciate you sharing so much of the detail and the nuance of how you guys got here. So look, we have to take a quick break, Dave, but when we come back, I want to ask you about your parent company, Etsy, and what it's been like to live through that acquisition. So we'll be right back in 1 minute.
If you're listening to this podcast, the Music Tectonics Conference was made for you. We want to give you the chance to win a free ticket to join us online, in the metaverse, and on a carousel by the sea. I have dibs on the dolphin, by the way. And it's actually a carousel by the sea. It's pretty exciting. Anyway, sign up for the Music Tectonics newsletter by June 21st, 2021, and you'll be entered with other new subscribers in a drawing for a free conference ticket. Well, what do you say? You're already a subscriber? Well, that's no big deal. Don't worry about it. We got you covered. You'll be entered in a separate drawing just for our loyal readers. Subscribe at musictectonics.com to enter.
All right, we are back. And Dave, as I said, I'm really curious about, I think less than 2 years ago, Reverb was acquired by Etsy, which in some ways makes total sense, but I had no idea. I didn't see it coming. But I'm really curious, how's that influenced the business?
Yeah, overall, Etsy's had a great influence on our business. The first thing and why, I'm sure a lot of people didn't see it coming, but one of the key things that Etsy has and Reverb has and why it's worked so well is that Etsy, like us, really has this focus on small businesses. So many of the sellers on Etsy are small businesses, as are so many of the sellers on Reverb. Yes, we've got major guitar dealers and manufacturers selling on Reverb, but the vast majority of our sellers are small businesses or individuals, and in a lot of cases they're family-owned shops. So that focus on how do we deliver solutions, how do we make things easier for small businesses, and how do we help those small businesses succeed? The fact that both Etsy and Reverb have that focus has really helped us. Etsy's also maintains a really strong focus on their community and what's the experience for their users, and what's the journey that users take as they use Etsy. How do they first learn about Etsy, and how can we make the experience really good for people that might not be as familiar as with our platforms when they're using it for the first time. The one area where Etsy's had a major impact on Reverb is on social impact. And Etsy's a company that, to their credit, and now to our credit, is very focused on the impact that the business has on the world. So just one example, Etsy's very focused on the impact on the environment, on the products that are manufactured on Etsy, and the way those products get into the hands of buyers. And they brought that influence to Reverb. So with Etsy's blessing, we now do carbon offsets that offset all of the carbon impact of all of the packaging that is used for the products that are sold on Reverb, and for the shipping and for the carbon impact of the shipping costs of the shipping, I should say, of the products. And it's been really rewarding to our team, and I think to our users, to know that you can operate a business in a way that is good business, while at the same time also being very mindful of the impact that you're having on the community around you. And Etsy has really inspired that in Reverb.
I love that. That's great. At our PR firm, Rock Paper Scissors, we are also working on a similar initiative. For every press hit that we get for one of our clients, we plant 10 trees through an organization we partner with, and it just feels great to be able to tell our clients that something that was primarily a print business once upon a time, using up trees is primarily not anymore. But still, we travel to conferences and so forth. So it's great. It's great to know that you're not contributing to the worsening of the planet while you're helping people make music, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So Dave, you spent almost 6 years at Indiegogo, primarily as the CEO. What was it like while you were there?
Indiegogo is wonderful, and it relates to my passion for small businesses. I actually, my dad operated a small retail business in San Francisco, where I grew up, and I worked in that small business. And there's something about helping entrepreneurs and small businesses that really motivates me. So Indiegogo is a crowdfunding platform that connects entrepreneurs and small businesses with consumers who want to help them fund their ideas and products. And what I loved about Indiegogo was getting to interact with the great variety of entrepreneurs that were bringing products onto our platform. There were entrepreneurs that brought medical devices and electric bicycles and better headphones. We actually even had manufacturers of guitar pedals on Indiegogo. And Indiegogo, I was there for about 6 years, and every day I was inspired and motivated by the entrepreneurs and small businesses that were trying to launch businesses on our platform. And I was really excited that, over my time there, we were able to help those small businesses raise over $1 billion to fund their businesses and launch their products. And many of those businesses are thriving today. So overall, it was a really rewarding experience.
That's awesome. How has what you learned at Indiegogo influenced your ideas for Reverb?
Yeah, it's influenced a number of my ideas. The main thing that I learned at Indiegogo is for individual, for smaller sellers, there's so much that they need to do. For if you're a small business and, say, if I'm looking at Reverb, say I'm a new pedal manufacturer, I've got so much to do. I'm trying to build a brand. Maybe I'm thinking I want to sell directly online. I need to create a transaction processing platform. So I need a partnership with a payment processor. I've got, and at the same time, I'm trying to build my product, and maybe I'm trying to raise money. What I learned at Indiegogo is that if you're operating a really good online marketplace, you really can make the experience of launching a new business and building a business so much easier for a seller. And I got really, while I was there, I just got really excited about how, I could do that at Indiegogo. And I've gotten even more excited about how we're able to do that at Reverb. The classic example is online marketing. If I'm a guitar pedal manufacturer, I don't really know anything about, I don't want to overgeneralize. It's unlikely that I know a lot about online marketing. How do I use Facebook and Google and other online marketing platforms to bring people, to help people become aware of my pedal and get them to actually buy it? Well, maybe the entrepreneur doesn't need to, figure that out at the outset. Maybe they can focus their energy on just building a really amazing pedal that inspires music makers. We can do the other part. We can, through our expertise in online marketing, we can drive consumers to their pedals, and we can help them with customer support when the customer's got a question about, when the pedal will arrive or about the capabilities of the pedal, so that they don't have to build out that capability either. And so, one of the main things that I learned is that when you're operating a really good online marketplace, you can really help a small business. The second thing that I learned, at Indiegogo, and also at now even more so in a lot of ways at Reverb, is there's so many ways to inspire users. At Indiegogo, it was fun to see the way users would get excited about how they maybe could change their commute from, riding to work in their car to riding on an electric bicycle, or hearing users, get excited about, a product that was going to in some way, maybe it was an exercise product. We had a really good rowing machine that used really great technology to improve the rowing machine experience on Indiegogo. And it was great to hear people get inspired by how they would, how it could, change the way that they exercised. Similarly, at Reverb, it's been really exciting to see how a large marketplace like ours that connects millions of sellers and buyers has the opportunity to inspire, and has the opportunity to inspire music makers to try a new instrument, to try a new effect with the instrument that they're playing, to inspire them to just make more music. I've been, it's just been a very, in both experiences, there's just been this great opportunity to see the way operating a good business that connects the right people on both sides can really inspire people in many ways.
Well, it's interesting because on Indiegogo, there's kind of almost only so much you can do to make sure that everything goes through the entire process. Reverb's built from the ground up to be more like a marketplace in a sense, where you could get into the weeds and the details of things like shipping and so forth to make sure that the full customer experience is there. So it sounds in a way like you're able to sort of bring what you learn from Indiegogo and actually go a little bit further, because Reverb is a little bit more of a, I don't know whether to call it a closed ecosystem, but in a way it's just built out more to like go all the way from the beginning to the end of the transaction and the relationship.
It is. And yes, Dimitri, absolutely. And as we've talked about, Reverb is more, I don't know if the right word, I can't think of the right word. It's neither symbiotic or cyclical, but there is a word.
Reciprocal.
Right. It is more reciprocal. So many of the buyers on Reverb are also sellers on Reverb. And that's a very different thing. And what we've learned is, one of the exciting things about Reverb is that we're always thinking about both parties, because they're very much the same. If we're launching a new feature for a seller, that new feature is going to impact a buyer who is also a seller, and it's I don't know how to describe it. It's given us this ability to sort of fuse in a lot of ways, the needs of the users, because in so many ways they're actually the same. And again, that singular focus has really helped us. So we can really focus, like I said, on the example I shared on the guitar boxes. At Indiegogo, we were selling this huge range of products. At Reverb, we're really focused on musical instruments. The way we describe it at Reverb is that our vision at Reverb is to unite music makers with musical instruments that will inspire them in ways that nobody else can. And that focus allows us, to do things like the guitar boxes and like our product catalog team that can allow us to deliver unique experiences that nobody else can match.
Awesome. That's great. Well, look, we got to take another quick break. And when we come back, we're going to keep widening out. I want to ask you about some trends that are emerging, both in terms of musical instruments and bigger shifts in the industry. We will be right back.
What's up, beautiful listeners? I've got a question for you. What do you want to hear next? Let me know at pages.musictectonics.com/feedback. Suggest future guests and music tech topics you want to hear us cover and tell us how we're doing. Again, that's pages.musictectonics.com/feedback. Look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, we're back. It's really interesting, Dave, that Reverb is as loved by the guitar world as it is by artists who use the latest synths or sequences or drum machines. It's like all over the map in terms of genre and scene. What trends are you seeing in terms of innovative instruments that are gaining in popularity?
Dimitri, that's a great question, and that's one of the fun parts about Reverb is just seeing what's becoming popular at any point in time. One very big trend that we have noticed is the surge in people's interest in effects pedals. Effects pedals, for those that might not be aware, are just those small metal boxes that a player who's playing live will usually have on the floor that they can engage with their foot, and it essentially just tweaks or changes the sound of the guitar or another instrument. They started primarily for guitars, but now they're often being used with synthesizers and an array of other instruments. And we're seeing effects pedals being used more and more. And those effects pedals in some ways are starting to become almost instruments in and of themselves. So, one example is a company called Hologram Electronics, a small effect pedal manufacturer that develops effect pedals that have such a range of capabilities that it's almost, I don't know how to describe it, it's almost like another member of the band. We've seen, put in perspective, last year, we had nearly 50,000 searches a day for effects pedals. And they've been, effects pedals are among the most popular, are as popular as they have ever been on Reverb. But it's not just effects pedals. We've seen, with synthesizers and with more and more people recording at home, we've seen a surge in synthesizers, and in particular, vintage synths have really been growing in popularity. And we've seen, while overall prices have increased on Reverb for used gear over the last year, they've increased even more for used synthesizers as users are looking more and more for that classic synthesizer from, maybe from the 80s or 90s to get exactly the sound that they're looking for. One of the things that, I'll say we're also seeing on Reverb is that cycle of users starting with a musical instrument and starting with something, fairly like a beginner instrument and then working their way up as they go. Like, I know that actually happened in my own household in the last year where, I have a 10-year-old son, and he became very interested in synthesizers, maybe because I was talking about them so much. And we started with a Korg monologue and then, worked our way from there up to a, Korg cross. And now he's ready, for the next, maybe for a Roland or something, or a Moog or something, at an even higher level. And, while we've seen, an interest in a lot of new musical instruments, we're also seeing, again, more and more of an interest in users that are getting into music and expanding their musical horizons as they go.
Yeah, that's really cool. You could kind of watch trends in terms of what sounds people are interested in based on what instruments they're searching for or buying. And then I love that what you say about the user journey, where you could look at an individual user, if you could, see into what they're doing and really get a sense of kind of their own educational path and their own interest path.
Absolutely, Dimitri. And that's been a big focus for us in the last year, is that now, because we have so many users that are using Reverb to buy and sell musical instruments, and as I mentioned earlier, now that we're giving users the ability to tell us what instruments they have, which gives us a really strong indicator of, what kind of music they're interested in, it really helps us to recommend what might be right for the next phase of their musical journey. And I don't want to talk about myself too much, but I started out exclusively as an acoustic guitar player. I just loved the sound of acoustic guitars. And I think in my mind, I thought, as soon as, when I get really good at the acoustic guitar, then I will start to explore other instruments. And maybe in a way, I feel like I haven't gotten there yet. But then all of a sudden, I was seeing what was happening with pedals, and I got inspired by seeing my colleagues play electric instruments, and I saw some of our videos about synthesizers, and all of a sudden I thought, it might be interesting to try a little bit, maybe learn to play the keys and be able to expand my musical horizons that way. I purchased my first electric guitar in the last year, and then very quickly purchased my second electric guitar. And there is something about being able to be part of a user's musical journey and be able to help guide their musical journey. And, as a user, Reverb helped me quite a bit on that musical journey, and we're inspired by our ability to inspire, to inspire the millions of users that visit Reverb regularly on their journeys as well.
Cool. No, that's so much fun, and you get windows into it. Of course, you're lucky; you get to be on the front line, so you can see what kind of interesting instruments cross your path that kind of get you excited. I kind of. At Music Tectonics, we sort of bounce between the recorded music industry and the musical instrument space, and we really like connecting the dots between the two, which is one of the fun things here, because for so long they've kind of operated as separate silos. But as things get more digital and more online, it's starting to seem like there's connections to be made. And so I'd love, to ask you, when you look at the music landscape that's emerging as a result of this maturation of the digital music economy, and maybe as we're coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic, what seismic shifts are you keeping an eye on that maybe they aren't directly related to what Reverb's up to today, but sort of help you sort of think about where things are going?
Oh boy, Dimitri, I love that question. And it's actually, my answer is a little bit related to, I know some of the work that you're doing most closely with, say, CD Baby. Mm-hmm. The biggest shift that we are seeing in the way people are playing music, and then the way they're recording music, and the way that they're distributing music, all of which are extremely exciting. But I'll stay focused. The biggest shift is in the ability for the musician to do more themselves, mm-hmm. and to not be as reliant on a record label or a promoter or whatever else it is that allows that in the past a musician was really relying on in order to be able to make a living playing music. So one of the trends that we're following very closely is the way that musicians that use Reverb, that are finding the instruments on Reverb to make that music, are then turning to digital platforms to distribute that music, like CD Baby and like Bandcamp and others. And that's a trend that's absolutely fascinating to us, because what we'd like to be able to do is enable musicians, the musicians that want to be professional musicians, to be able to be professional musicians and to be able to support themselves through their music. Our mission at Reverb is to make the world more musical. And we feel that if more people can actually earn a living playing music, recording music, performing music live, that will make the world more musical. And so that's the biggest trend that we're following outside of the musical instrument industry is the new ways that musicians are able to support themselves making music.
Awesome. This has been so much fun, Dave. I appreciate you coming on and your generosity of transparency with where you guys have been, where you're going, what you're thinking about. As we wrap up, we've got a pretty strong B2B audience, a lot of people from record labels, music tech startups, distribution companies, marketing startups for the music space and so forth. Is there anything that we should be telling them about how they could interact with Reverb besides obviously buying and selling instruments? Are there things that you kind of would love to I mean, you kind of mentioned with the distribution side, there might be some possibilities there. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave folks with as we wind down?
Yeah, absolutely. The main thing that I would leave people in the musical industry with about Reverb is to think of Reverb as your partner. Reverb, we don't, the only thing that Reverb actually sells directly is guitar boxes, you know? And so it's the way Reverb has built our business is we try to partner with the people in the music industry. I hope that, or in the musical instrument industry, I hope that as people think about Reverb, they think about us as a company that can be a partner to help with this transition that is happening in the industry. Just like in so many industries, so much of business is shifting from traditional offline platforms like the stores themselves to online. And the main thing I would say is, rather than seeing that as a threat, I think what everybody from manufacturers to dealers to individual buyers and sellers should see is an opportunity. More people are interested in music than ever before. More people are playing music than ever before. Demand is higher than it's ever been. Now is the time to really partner and be part of the future of music making. And Reverb is excited to be in the position to be able to partner with so many exciting entities to be able to make that happen. And I'd hope that everybody would really think of Reverb as a partner to help their businesses thrive and to help us all achieve what is our overall mission, which is to make the world more musical.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Dave. Unfortunately, I have to go search for a new loop pedal or maybe a modular synth, so I'm going to have to cut us short.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dimitri. I really enjoyed speaking.
It was a blast. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to Music Tectonics. If you like what you hear, please hit subscribe on your favorite podcast app. We put out new episodes every week. Want more? Find it at musictectonics.com. You can dig deeper into this episode, learn about our annual conference, get the Music Tectonics app, and sign up for our newsletter. Musictectonics.com has it all. Also, look for Music Tectonics on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Clubhouse. And connect with me, Dimitri Vitsa, on LinkedIn. Peace.
You're listening to Music Tectonics.